Next up, we have a presentation from RIPE NCC, from Tiers, looking at the root cause for DNS latency.
Yes, my presentation is based on research that my colleagues did and recently wrote about, which was us taking a look at the root cause for DNS latency. And the subtitle is what frustrates internet users most, slow DNS. And I thought, is this extreme? Actually, no, it's real. I switched to ISPs because of slow DNS, so we decided to run with it. What are we talking about? We're talking about high DNS latency, and not caused by internet traffic, but DNS traffic taking a small detour. So, for example, traffic from Baghdad going to Dubai. But DNS requests really arriving at a very different location. So traffic traveling almost completely around the globe and causing a noticeable latency. And to do this analysis, we use some of the tools. So we're using this presentation both to show that some DNS deployments are not, or our DNS deployments are not optimal in this region. And we're also showing how you can use RIPE Atlas to do this type of analysis yourself. And we're also showing some other tools. The RIPE NCC offers network operators to look at what's actually happening. So what did we do? We measured from the RIPE Atlas probes in the Middle East towards the RIPE NCC old DNS service. This measured both the latency and the NSID, so we know what server replied. And since we know where every server is, we use this in our analysis. We have data from 187 probes, and because this is based on RIPE Atlas, it means that you can do this type of analysis yourself too, for DNS, but also for trace routes to other tools, etc., etc. If we take a first look at the data, we see that the round-trip time to this DNS deployment from the Middle East has split out by the server it arrives at, has different types of latencies. Some replies are very quick. Other requests arrive in Europe are slightly slower, and some DNS requests take a very serious detour. And if we jump one level deeper by looking in the countries, you can really see where these DNS responses come from. And there's two effects at play here in this graph. So on one side you see that Iran and Turkey have a very high number of RIPE Atlas probes, so we will have a lot of data from there, and less data from other countries. But if you look at the data in detail, you see that most RIPE Atlas probes got a DNS reply from Western Europe, even though we have an Anycast site in Bahrain. And however, we don't have an Atlas. However, the Atlas probes in Bahrain got rerouted to Amsterdam somehow. So it's really confusing data to look at, and it shows that A, you can analyze how an Anycast deployment is performing, and B, that Anycast can be suboptimal. And the third part, and that's actually a kind of cool effect, is that based on how BGP works with the preferences, you see that the the node hosted by STC Telecom in Bahrain gets the traffic from Saudi Arabia, probably because those routes are preferred. And how can we improve this, and how can we improve this analysis? That's actually the most important part, I think. First of all, we would really like it if we would have, if some of the network operators here in the region would help us by hosting an odd DNS POP. And on the next slide, I'll explain a little bit what's in there and why it's actually beneficial for you as a network operator as well, and not just beneficial for us. And the old DNS is an Anycast DNS deployment. I think I said that word like 15 times already now. That's an authoritative DNS server for a number of zones. And some of these are ours, it's ripe.net, MENOG. Others are more important for the internet at large, like the reverse DNS zones. And we also run an authoritative DNS for a number of smaller TLDs, and including a few in the region, such as Syria, Jordan, Palestine. What we would need if someone wants to run an odd DNS site is a BGP session that's effectively a customer of your network. It's the same as any. It's not risky. It's the same as any customer that you set up a BGP peering session with, and because the routing effects that we saw on the previous slide, the most effective location for such an anycast deployment, and I think that Max touched on that yesterday as well, actually, and some others as well, is if you deploy it in the right location. We aim to have a quite dense deployment of this DNS infrastructure, like the NCC does with K-root as well. So we're mostly looking for for ISPs that host this, where the routes probably will be preferred to any network in your customer cone, or even a situation where we have access to an internet exchange port, where we can set up peering sessions with any network on the IXP and have a very short path. And these short paths at IXPs may actually be what you were seeing in the previous slide with the traffic going to Amsterdam as well, because if you are a direct peer of a DNS site at an internet exchange point, the BGP path length is very short, so you will probably prefer it, even if this is a remote peering session to one of the big IXPs that are present here. Another way you can help to improve this situation is very indirectly by contributing data to RIPE-RIS, which is a route collection project, where we do not have many peers in this region, and this is a route collector, route collection project where the data that we gather is publicly available, and that means that network operators can use this data to basically effectively have a looking glass from many networks, which is then used in various tools, such as it's the major data source for RIPE-STAT. You can also consume this data. You can also consume this data live, so you can contribute data yourself, but you can also use RIS to get a WebSocket stream of BGP announcements for your network. And then there are tools such as an open source tool called BGP Alerter that consume this data and help you monitor your network. So setting up a BGP session for your network doesn't give you a big benefit for your network yourself, but collectively, if many parties contribute, you improve the situation for everyone. In the region, we don't have that many BGP sessions, and I understand this may be tricky, but we would be really happy to get BGP feeds from Oman, and I know that talks are ongoing right now. Hope it settles out that we get one. Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Arab Emirates. Sorry, I feel ignorant right now. A third way you can contribute is, and we've all heard about RIPE Atlas here in various talks, is not only by having a RIPE Atlas probe in your network on the customer side, but by having a RIPE Atlas anchor. A RIPE Atlas anchor is a VM or an appliance that's in the network that you run in the data center. And because it's in the data center, it's usually much more stable than a connection that is in somebody's home network, where, for example, my Atlas probe has been offline for a week now because issues at home. And having these RIPE Atlas anchors which have a much more stable round trip time in practice, allows us to do much deeper analysis. And one good case that we have here is a recent analysis, a very recent one, where there was a cable cut in a cable cut between in the what sea is this? Thank you. A cable cut in the Baltic Sea, where we then looked at the measurements between all the Atlas anchors, because we have continuous measurements between all the. We have continuous mesh measurement between all the Atlas anchors, where we compared the latency change during this cable cut, and we could really clearly see that the packet loss did not increase during this cable cut, but a lot of paths suddenly had increased latency when this cable was cut. And I think the Red Sea is maybe even more risky for cable cuts. And one part of being able to do more of this type of analysis is if we have more of these Atlas anchors deployed. And to do this measurement, we need 5 or more Atlas anchors in a country to look at data at the country level. And some countries in the region have a lot of these measurement points, but other countries, such as the ones here on the list, don't have that many. And having this here and having this on the east coast of Africa would probably allow us to do cable cut analysis in the future and really see what the impact is when an incident happens, and hopefully conclude that the internet does route around damage and just becomes a little bit slower instead of actually causing packet loss or real issues. What you can do yourself, even without actively running something like the previous 3 things I talked about, is using RIPE Atlas. RIPE Atlas is our measurement platform that allows you to run measurements from outside your own network towards your own network or other destinations. We have 12,000 probes worldwide, and probes can be either a hardware probe, like my colleague Leah has right now, and where we're really looking for viewpoints in the region. It can be a Docker image that you run. It can be another type of software probe where you run the package on the Linux server, and that allows you and other people to do these measurements, not only from inside your network, but also from outside your network. If you want to try RIPE Atlas, I'll talk through it a little bit now, but what's important is that you need some credits to work with this. You get credits if you run a probe yourself, but if you use the code that's on this slide right here, you will immediately get credits so you can try it right away. So use this MENOG 2024 code to get started right away and do these ping, traceroute, DNS, and then various types of DNS measurements, TLS, HTTP, or NTTP measurements to look at routing, what anycast, POP response, etc. When you do a measurement, the data is available through the API and through the website. So you can analyze it using our website, but you can also consume it in your own scripts or the CLI tools that are available. And you have a pretty intuitive way to visualize the results. So in this case, for example, you see that the latencies are all over the place and quite high. Well, I'm used to the internet looks different depending on where you are, and I don't know if a 300 millisecond latency is low in the Middle East or if it's high, but I think a lower latency is always more usable, always nicer. And for Atlas, we really want to have more of these vantage points in the region. This can be an anchor or an hardware probe. And for Atlas, There's a lot of diversity of where these probes are, like Max talked about yesterday as well, I think. So it can be in a home access network, so we are happy if we have a probe that somebody runs at home. It's a small device with a USB cable. You plug it into a network, you plug in the network cable, and it just runs. You don't have to actually attend to it. It can also be in a core network, which gives a slightly different measurement. Depending on what you want as a researcher, you may be interested in what real users see, but you also may want to filter out the effects of the last mile. So both are valid. And using these Atlas probes, you can do a lot of analyses, and what we have done here and is ongoing is, for example, see how many networks interconnect at IXPs so that traffic can potentially stay local and interconnect in the region without going via transit. If you take a look at where these probes are, you realize that the RIPE NCC is very big in Western Europe, so it's a very dense deployment of these measurement points there. And in the Middle East, it's much more sparse, so that's why we want to focus on this, because having, if you have 500 probes in Germany or 1,000, it really doesn't matter for the type of measurements you can do. I hope I'm not making Leah unhappy with this. But if you have 0 or 1 probe in Oman, it really makes a difference between being able to see how the internet looks from here or not. And this is not only used by network operators, but it's also often used by academic researchers which want to analyze the internet at large. So they may even reach the wrong conclusion if you don't have visibility in a certain region. So we really want to make sure that what we have is kind of representative of the real internet. In summary, I showed some slow DNS latencies, and we showed our analysis, where we concluded that the responses are slow based on how the traffic is routed and due to where the POPs are. We proposed 3 ways to improve the situation by having another anycasted alt-DNS deployment here in the region, which hopefully captures more traffic, especially if it's at an IXP, so we can interconnect with a lot of networks there. We want to have more Atlas probes and anchors deployed to allow us to do analyses like for subsea cable issues, but also to help network operators debug issues. And it would also really help if we get a few BGP feeds from the region, either a full table or just a customer feed, to see how the internet looks in this region and how the interconnection happens here. We also have gotten recommendations for specific countries, and I recommend you take a look at the slides if you are from one of these, because we looked at what networks are most valuable for us to get visibility in. So if you are in Oman, in the UAE, in Bahrain, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, especially Saudi Arabia because the routing looks very interesting when looking at alt-DNS, Palestine, Yemen, Syria. Then we have these recommendations for the country. So please take a look and see if you can contribute. Okay, that's what we wanted to show you. Hope it was interesting. And if you have any questions about either RIS, RIPE Stat, or RIPE Atlas, ask me or my colleague Leah.